Hey guys, what's up? So this is basically the fourth video of the React series, and in this one what I want to do is basically tear down the whole layout that we have and rebuild it with Material UI. So that means you'll basically have to almost start from scratch. You can just keep the boilerplate that we have. So I've been messing around with this library a bit, and it has pretty nice components and decent documentation, but still I'm like pretty newbie to this library, so I don't know the best practices or stuff. So I'm just gonna try figure that out as we go, and I have a sample layout sort of in mind that I want to implement. Of course, this is not the exact thing that I want to implement, like in terms of text and color, etc., but just a rough helper to give us some guidelines on what we want. So yeah, let's get started with this right away. The first thing that we'll have to do is we'll have to first exit out of the app and add Material UI. So let me just check the exact command for this. Installation. Yeah, yarn add @material -ui/core. I'm still trying to learn this library properly, so let's see. Yeah, I forgot to add. Pretty ironic. So what I'm gonna do until then is basically tear down the whole markup that we have, because yeah, we'll have to do it almost from scratch. I'll keep the logic code over here. Hopefully we can reuse a lot of it after we implement the thing, but until then, yeah, this code is pretty much all useless. So I also want to name it header. Rename. So by now I think Material UI would be installed. Yep, let's see. Yeah, so that's installed, but we also need to install uh, the icons thing. So for the icons, we need to separately install Material UI /icons. Yeah. So let's let that happen in the background while we set this up. So I've just renamed the header a form component to header component, and uh, just change the import statement to that, and /header component. Cool. And we'll take out the other stuff that we don't need for now, and basically just start working on it with header component. So as you can see, icon thing is still going on, it's downloading. So until then we can analyze this a little bit. So what we have right over here in the header, I just want the heading, just the name todo on one side and the circular action button on the other. So this is basically called, this circle button is called as floating action button, fab for short. So that this would be just the header component for our thing, and after that this is the todo area. Basically this will be inside a grid, would have some spacing sort of, and for these todo elements I don't know if I'm going to use card or just paper, because card gives us a specific API to arrange your stuff, but paper is just a surface sort of. You'll see when I show you guys. So yeah, we'll get started on the todo first. So now that that's downloaded, we can say yarn start to start up our app. and once this starts up, this will reload. Until then, let's see, we need to import a bunch of stuff from Material UI. So we'll say import grid from @material UI/core. Cool. So I think instead of grid we can use container, because I just want to have a wrapper element around everything, so it just has so that it has, you know, uniform padding from the side. So yeah, okay, I don't know what just happened. It jumped from container to radio. My laptop becomes really sluggish when it comes to recording and when it comes to coding while recording. Yep. So what we can do is just add a container element and give it a max width. I don't know how that will work, but alright, let's see. No, we'll just have a container element and give it a style, and the style we can specify the margins. Yeah, that sounds nice. And before that, we'll also apply CSSBaseline, which I think is just CSS reset basically. So instead of grid, we need container, we need CSSBaseline. Yeah, that's all for now, I think, for this app.js area. So we have this container, and this will have view, and before that I just want to have CSS baseline. Yeah, so now let's save that and see what happens. Reload, bro. Whew. Yep, we gotta wrap this in a fragment because you can't return more than 2 elements from a component. So fragment just basically helps you return multiple elements, as it's an empty tag that wraps around your markup. Why is this not reloading automatically? It is supposed to hot reload. CSS baseline not imported, of course, but it is. I've imported this stuff. Okay, it's not exported from Material UI/core. So what can we do for this one? Let's see. Of course we can, you know, import these things in separately, but I definitely know that we can import several things along. Never mind, we'll just import them separately for now. Because there are not a lot of elements anyway that we need. So CSS baseline and import container from Material UI/core slash container. Okay, so that's where the issue is. We'll just say yo over here to return something at least. It's not defined. So now it should run, and as you can see there's automatically a bit of padding from the side, and that is because of our container. Sorry, not padding, margin I suppose. Yeah, and as we expand this, it has that default margin by margin. We can give our whole container a background if we want. So just to figure out how do we style this stuff, uh, these material UI stuff. So we add a style attribute, and let's see how they've done this. And inside the curly braces, first we give it the curly braces to signify that it's going to be JavaScript and not JSX, and then we pass in a JS object, a JavaScript object basically. And I guess these CSS uh, keywords are basically, instead of hyphens, they use camel case. So for example, background color in CSS would be background color, but over here they use camel case and get rid of the hyphen. So we can give it a hex value, hashtag EFEFEF. Yeah. So on saving that, this is reloading. Yeah. So as you can see, this yo area has a some sort of background, but let me make this darker so that it's more visible for us to see the background, to figure out if it's applying padding or margin. Okay, so it wasn't applying padding, it wasn't applying margin, it was applying padding to inside the stuff, the container element. So that's nice. Now what we'll do is we'll just drop in the header component. And we have imported the header component. Cool. Then yeah, so this should reload and just show us a yo in here. Yeah, works fine. So now we gotta work inside this header component to figure out what we need. So first of all, the first issue that I can think of is no, it's pretty much sorted. Sorry, yeah. So first we need to have inside this div, or we can just make this a grid item. So we'll import grid from @material UI /core and say grid. Yeah, and it has to be a container, and direction is automatically row, and we want it to justify space between, right? So because yeah, we'll figure out the justify stuff later on. So this will be a grid item, and this has to be to do. Update imports for always automatically update. Oh, we can do this. That would be pretty awesome. So if I write typography, will it update my imports? Nah, it didn't. So typography is basically just an element that's used to wrap around text inside Material UI. You want to make it say to do. Yeah. I don't know why there's an error over here. What if we make this 333 like proper hex instead of just shorthand? And what I'm thinking is, rather than getting warnings every time, we can just comment out this code that we're not using right now. Yeah. So Command Alt A is the shortcut in VS Code to comment out blocks. How is it still compiling, man? Okay, can't resolve in. Oh, I must have made some mistake. When did I do that? Material UI slash core slash CSSBaseline. I hope now it works fine. Yep, so now you can see we have a to do text written over here. And we should just remove the background color from the container for now. We don't need that. Okay, so now to make the typography element into a heading, you can peek into the documentation for the typography element and figure out what props do we need to pass it. Let's see. Okay, so to have all this different text, we can just use typography element and pass it a variant. So I think h1, h2 are pretty huge. We can use h3 for our thing. So if we say variant is equal to h3. Okay, that's huge too. So just h4. Or basic, I think we are too zoomed in, maybe. Yeah, sorry, I had to stop for a second. Somebody from my family walked in. So what I was saying is, we need this to do element to be an h4, and that looks pretty nice. Yeah, that looks all right. So next thing that we need in our design is this circular button sort of. So this is a floating action button. So let's figure out how to do that in Material UI. Oh, yeah. So this is exactly what we need. So we need to import fab and we need to import add icon. So we just import fab, and then import add icon. Then what we can do is just wrap around another grid item, set it as fab, and pass its add icon inside. Reload. I'm pretty irritated of this sluggish hot reloading. It's much better with the Vue CLI tool. Okay, so this doesn't look right. So what we can say is we give the grid a justify prop, which is basically how you would say in CSS justify between for a flex item, and the grid uses CSS flex box. So yeah, we need to see the grid API and see what options we can give it. I need the API for grid. Okay, so here are the values for align content and align items, but we need to see yeah, justify. We can say flexed, so it's basically the same keywords. We can just say space between to create spacing between them. Justify space between, and save, and I hope this works. Yep, it's reloading. Yeah, so as you can see, these are in the right places, but the header needs some margin on the top, so I'll add style margin top 1 rem. Yeah, so now it's spaced out, maybe 2 rem. Okay, so we need to change the size for our fab button, fab API. Yeah. Rather than pouring through the examples, once you have got it in place, it's really, more convenient to go through the API and figure out what stuff you can give to it. So we can give it a size prop. Yeah, we can give it a size prop, and by default it has large. So let's try seeing what it gets with medium. So size is equal to medium. And the other thing that we need to give it is color. Color can be a primary or secondary. We'll just give it the primary color. So yeah, I'm just checking if there's something else that we want to configure, and no, that's pretty much it. We'll give it a primary color. Color is primary. Yeah, looks pretty neat in my opinion. Okay, and then we want to have align items also, right? So jump this down, tab it up, tab align items center. Yeah, So our header section seems to be more or less sorted now. It's similar to how we wanted. Of course, the colors are not the same, but as you can see, this looks similar. Yeah, pretty good. Okay, so after we have this, so the header component is done. Now let's go back to the app and see, after header we need the uh, main area, right? So I'll just say to do list component, and as we're not passing any children to the header component, we can make it to be a self-closing tag. And right now this is going to give us an error because we have not imported the to-do list component. I deleted that line. So here's our to-do list component. I see. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff. What I'm going to do is delete all of this. Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm gonna delete. I deleted all of that. Indent this better. Yeah. And right now I'll just return todo.val for now. Like dev todo.val. I think we'll have to wrap this also inside curly braces because it's JS, not JSX. Import to-do list component from /to-do list component. Yeah, now it should reload, which it is doing. Props.todos is undefined. Yep, because you're not giving it any to-dos as of now. So we'll just say for now. Just to-do text. Nothing fancy. Just want to get it properly displayed. Okay, yeah, of course. We'll just have to get rid of this for now. The whole thing. And then we'll just return from here div to-do list component. Okay, cool. So now let's just have some default to-dos. So we need this state, and we'll just make some dummy data so that we have stuff. And instead of saying use local storage state for now, I'm just going to say use state, because we're going to wire in all the functionality in the next video. Right now I just want to focus on implementing the UI. So val to do one, then what else does it need? Priority high and due. Right now we'll just pass in a date string. Later on I'll use proper JavaScript datetime object. Yeah, and we just need to replicate this a couple times, even though this is not exactly a schema because we also have UUID. Yeah, so todo1, todo2, hi 12 June, todo3, low 14 June, 224, med 14 June, and set this to 13 June and say medium, because these are the values that I want to add into our schema later on. That we'll have UUID, value, priority, and due date. So yeah, these are basically your to-dos, and we'll pass that into a to-do list component. So now this should have no trouble because we are passing that in from the props. Yeah, this is just an often curly brace. Okay, so it's showing us 4 to-dos like this. Cool. So we'll just say todo.val, and it should show us the proper text for that to-do. Yeah, todo1, todo3, todo4, todo5. Okay, cool. So now that we have this, the only thing we need to figure out is how to make the cards look like this. To the text, due, cool. So I think rather than looking into card component, we can use this paper component and lay it out with a grid. So this is the paper component, and it's just a surface sort of, that basically a container with some background or whatever. Cool. So I'll just use paper and grid to make this. I'm sure that the better way is to go with the card, but I don't want to complicate it right now. Import grid and paper from @material UI / core. Yeah, so now that we have imported that, instead of doing this, we can say, first of all, we have to wrap this whole thing around in a grid container so that we can specify the spacing properly. Grid container, and after that, while we're looping over this stuff, we'll say grid item and it's somehow showing me an error here. Grid has no corresponding closing tag. Here is its closing tag. What is he even talking about? Here's the closing tag for this grid. But let's see, man. Let's see what this gives us. Unterminated. So we have this grid, opening and closing tags. We'll just do this stuff from scratch. Grid, and this is a container. It still says has no corresponding closing tag. What's wrong with it? Okay, so the error has gone away. And of course we are also going to need typography elements. I'm just going to bring it in already. So grid container, inside that we need to loop over props dot todos dot map, and we have this to do that we're going to be returning a return. Okay, so inside this it's going to be a grid item because it's enclosed inside a grid, of course, and inside the item it's going to be a paper element. And let's see what we get with todo.var. Okay, so we get all these to-dos side by side. Let me zoom in to show you guys, and they're all in their own sort of container. So now to zoom out to 100. So we need to set its direction to, instead of row, to column. Because a grid by default has the direction of row, similar to flexbox. We'll just say direction to column, and then we need to give it some spacing. We'll give it a spacing of 2. Okay, now it has some spacing amongst it. I also want some margin on the top, so styles margin top 1.5 rem. So that somehow didn't work. So let's try 2 rem. Still doesn't work. Oof. Because it's a container and header component. Let's see. The header component has style margin top 2 rem. Then why doesn't this work? It's the same as this. Okay. No, it's exactly the same. Okay. It's not styles, it's style. There's an extra S. That's why this didn't work. Now, there should ideally be margin, and this is too much margin, so somewhere around 1.2 would be fine. So now let's focus on styling this. Inside the paper we'll have another grid container tool, and it's going to have 2 grid items. First one is todo.val, and the second one is todo dot priority. And now they're just spaced together, so we'll say justify equal to space between. As I'm coding this, I'm thinking that there must be a simpler way to do this, obviously, but don't know right now. Gotta focus on getting the layout right. And we want a little padding, so we'll add this style and add a padding of 0.8 rem. Yep, looks decent already. So I don't know why it shows so many errors. Let's see if the app crashes. No, it's still working. So these errors are basically just VS Code not being able to keep up. So that we have had that, and then we need another grid item, but no, it will be a different one. So we'll have to add padding to that too. Instead, we can just take this style up to the paper element so that it's applied to both. And after that, I just need a typography tag over here. Variant we'll figure out. Let it just be default typography for now, and we'll say due todo dot due. So let's see if that gives us what we want. Typography is not okay. I said typograph. Missed the Y. Why did I miss the Y? Yep, looks pretty decent. Looks pretty close. Obviously, like there are still stuff that needs to be done, but this looks pretty close, right? To me, it does. Just gotta figure out the right sizes. So, cool. Now, to figure out the right size, let's jump over to Material UI and see typography. And again, I'm like feeling guilty or whatever for not using the simplest way or whatever, but I'm just using whatever's coming to my mind first. So our to-do heading was H4. Cool. So if we make a a to-do text H5, yeah, let's try that. Typography variant is equal to H5. Okay, and I guess this is up here, so we'll also need to say align items is equal to center. What just happened? Cancel. And rather than H5, I think H6 is going to be fine. Again, my laptop is dying to keep up with all this. Yeah, so that looks pretty decent. And for the this one, I think let's try using variant is equal to body 2. Was there a hyphen? Let's see. Nah, body 2. That should be fine. So that text is small, and we want this priority to be a badge. No, not exactly badge. Sorry, my bad. It should be a pill or something. I'm sure there's something. Yeah, chip. That's what I was looking for. chip. Yeah, so this is a chip, which is basically a small uh, element sort of. So let's see, outlined, size medium, color primary, icon none, on delete default, nah, none, avatar letter, nah, none. So that gives us what we need. Chip, 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 chip. And of course we need to import it. I've been thinking that keeping these imports as sorted by alphabets would keep it pretty handy. So where did I move the chip? Chip. Let's see the code for this. Okay, so whatever we need, we'll have to pass that in as label. So label is equal to todo dot priority. So this should reload to be a chip. Yeah, and the size is too large, so we will just say size is equal to small. And what my idea is with this priority, this is basically a clickable chip. If somebody clicks on them, it will add a filter over here that says that will mean that will only show to-dos that have a priority of high. So that's the idea. And I don't want this to be outlined. It will look better if it's normal filled. Yep. Save. Yeah, in my opinion that looks better. Of course the colors are pretty off. I want red for high, medium for orange, orange for medium, green for low. But this is pretty decent to what we wanted. And we can even increase the, like, do you see the box shadow right over here? We can go to paper and say elevation is equal to 4. Elevation basically just defines the box shadow. How much do you want it to look like it's off the screen? 4, 3, 2, whatever. So the last thing that I want to do is right now, when you click on this fab floating action button, it should trigger a modal over here, a dialog box. So we'll add an on click is handle fab click, and we'll just deconstruct the props over here because you're not getting a lot anyway. Fab click, and what we need to do is pass that in to the header component. Handle fab click is equal to handle fab click. The funny thing is we haven't defined this method yet, this function yet, so let's do that. Const handle fab click is equal to this, and for now we're just going to do console.log click, and I guess all these functions should be below the state. Yeah, so let's hit F12 and check a console. Ooh, yeah, you're missing a lot of things right now, so just take off the errors in the warning. We'll care about them later on. Yep, so on this click, you see this click is being logged. So now we've got to figure out how do we add a dialog box with form elements in it. So a dialog, yep, okay. So what we need is a form dialog, and this is exactly what we need. We'll just have more form elements than this one. So let's see. We need to import dialog actions, uh, dialog content text, and dialog title. So let's do that. And I was thinking we can make this into another component. So form dialog component .js and import react from react cool const form dialog component is equal to, and we'll have props by default, return div form dialog component, and then put default form dialog component. Yeah, we'll bring it in app.js. Form dialog component from /form dialog component. Cool. Now that we have brought it in, we can place it somewhere over here. I think we can even place it outside a container, because anyway the dialog is going to be different. Yeah. So I'm sure we'll also need to pass it in a prop to it that says whether it's open or not, but let's figure that out in a moment. We'll have to create another state variable for that. So we can see a little form dialog component visible over here. Now let's figure out how to do this stuff. First, as we saw, we need to import tons of stuff from Material UI. Import dialog from @material UI/core. we need dialog, we need dialog actions, dialog content text. So first of all, we'll have this dialog. Form content dialog. And by default, I guess it's being given a value of false for open. So we also need to say open is equal to true for now to just test out, and later we can wire up the proper logic. Because we'll have to pass this open as prop from the app.js file. Yeah, so right now it's open by default, it's just this much. We'll keep it open so that we can design it. And then we need a dialog title. So dialog title, yeah, so it will be dialog title add todo. Yeah, so we have a dialog title. Now we don't need dialog content text, we'll just need a dialog content. So after dialog title, we'll have dialog content as content for now. And let's see if this loads up and shows up properly. Content, cool. Now for content, we want it to have text fields. I need a text field, a select, and a date picker. So we'll need to look for inputs. First of all, we need a text field. Yep. And the text field that I really like is the outlined one. This looks pretty good. So you'll see the proper code for it. And it seems like we just need to import text field like that. So text field, capital F or small f, capital F. And you can say text field. Label add to do text. So now we should be seeing a to text form field over here. Yep, and I want it to be outlined, so variant is equal to outlined. Yep, that looks nice. Okay, cool. Next thing that we want is a select element for the priority. and again we're going to go with the same style, a text element, an outlined one looks good. So let me see, we need to import menu. Why do we need to import so many stuffs for a select element? Okay, so let's see what they have in this. Menu with menu item none. Okay, I see. And which one we want? We want the second last one. So we'll just pick this exact code up and edit it according to how we want it to be. So we'll just pick up from select and leave out form control. Yeah. From input label maybe. That should do the trick. Or maybe we'll just wrap it around with a form control too. What's the harm? Cool. We'll remove this ID. Input label would be priority, and right now value is going to be nothing. We can take off. Okay, so I think like they had an ID over here on the input label. ID, we need to have an ID. So ID would be priority label, and then we can just put that in our label ID, priority label. We don't need an ID for this, and we can take off the on change handler for now, and instead of age we will say priority. Cool. And the first item is going to be none. Instead we'll just put first item as low, then mid, then high. Low, mid, high. And we can give them the same values as well. High, mid, low. Okay, now the only thing that we have to do is import all this stuff. We have to import in form control, input label, select, and menu item. That is a hell lot of stuff. This looks so messed up, man. Okay, so what we can do is we can wrap this around in a grid. Grid container direction is equal to column. Cool. And do grid, and then both of these will be a grid item. And we will just indent this to properly represent, and we will just import grid right on the top. So that's saved, and that should trigger a reload. it still has this messed up width for some reason. So we'll just style it, or maybe let's just try removing form control. Let's see what happens, because I'm not sure what exactly is form controls doing. Maybe we can read up on that. And we want the variant to be filled, no outline. Okay, so that's what form control is doing. We can give it a variant using form control. Yeah. Okay. So now we just need to fix the width thing, and for that, I guess on this form control we can say style, and we can give it a width of 100%. This should reload. Yep, so that's correct. Now it can select the priority like that, and now we just need to add a bit of spacing. Yep. So now let's look at how to do the date time thing. We need a date picker right over here. Okay, so I guess we'll first have to uh, you know install this and use the date picker from here. So that's all right. We can just do yarn at material UI pickers, and you see it had that spacing. First of all, it wasn't supposed to be filled, it was supposed to be outlined. No, that will be fine, no worries. We'll download pickers. Until then, let's figure out providing interface for important material UI pickers version 8. Okay, so right now I think rather than going into all of this, we can just use a native picker. I don't want to stretch this out, stretch this video anymore. I think it has already been a pretty long time, so I'll just cancel this. We'll clear this up, and we'll use a native picker. So yarn start, and a date picker is basically just a text field that has a type of date. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. So we need to have another grid item and say uh, text field label is due date type is equal to date. Let's see what that gives us. Until then, we can figure out how to add dialog actions. Okay, so dialog actions, you can just add buttons in there. So we have to first import it. And then after content, dialog actions, yeah, action. For now we'll add the button. This also needs to have an S. Okay, I think I have a fair idea why it might be taking this long to reload again and again. Early on we were using uh, Tailwind CSS, so I had added the CDN for it. So every time we are running a thing, it's loading the stuff from the CDN. You can just get rid of the CDN for now. Command F tailwind. Yep. As we're not using it anymore, I'll get rid of it. No tailwind anymore. Let's go back to SRC. Now I guess it should be quicker. How is this so messed up? So I guess we'll open up another tab. Components, and we'll try to figure out why the date picker is so messed up. So I guess I have to apply specific classes to it. Display flex, that's alright. Theme dot spacing 1, theme dot spacing 1. Width 200. So I guess I should provide it a default value. And first of all, let's see if first of all we'll set its variant to be outlined. I still don't know why that looks so messed up. First of all, we need to increase its width, which we'll do with style. And now let's look at figuring out input label props, shrink is equal to true. Maybe this will work out. Okay, so this is still messed up. Even if I've given it a default value, ID, label, um, all that good stuff. So we should try a last resort. Input label props, shrink is equal to true. Yep, that was the solution after all. So now we just need to add a button to cancel and a button to add. Button add and cancel. And we'll add a style color of primary to this one. Yep, so add cancel to do text blah 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 whatever, and I guess we can set a min width for this dialog. So we would want it to be style min width is at least 50% of the viewport width, 60. So 60 VW. Reload. Alright, that seems fine. And it does feel a little more cramped up, so we'll increase the spacing to 2. Yep. So now, instead of, yeah, that looks like it has much more space. Now let's just wire up the logic for the dialog box. We'll set it to props dot open. Okay, so now we need to just figure out how to handle this. Open, set open, handle click open, handle close, on click, okay, on close, handle close. So we need to add on close is equal to props dot handle close, and in the cancel button we need to have on click is equal to handle close. And now we need to go to app.js and write those functions and that state. Now it will give us an error for now, but don't worry about that, we'll fix that really soon. Const is dialog open, set is dialog open is equal to use state, and we'll set this to false by default, and then const handle dialog open will be set is dialog open to true, yep, and const handle dialog close is going to be false. Set is dialog open to false. Yep. Now we'll give it handle dialog open. Let me just see what I named the functions over here. Handle close and handle. Yeah, we just need to give it a set is dialog open and handle close. So open is equal to is dialog open and handle close is handle dialog close. Now this should pretty much do it. Let's see, moment of truth. Did we wire this up correctly? Handle close is not defined. Okay, we just need to say props.handle close. Save, reload. Yeah, and this should, yeah, this opens up the dialog. It automatically adds an overlay, and clicking away from the dialog and clicking cancel closes the dialog. And that's amazing, and that's all that we wanted to do for this video, and I'm really happy that we got this done. And now I'm really excited that in the video 5, part 5 of this series, we're gonna wire up the whole logic for this and get this working properly, and hopefully also this filter to separate by date, separate by priority. So I'm really looking forward to the next video because it's going to be really, fun logic to implement. This was all just markup stuff and CSS, etc. I'm looking forward to the logic even more. So definitely like this video if you did enjoy this video, which I'm sure you did. And for more videos coming up, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you. Bye bye.